But ladies and gentlemen, this is your host for today, DJ Cometk, and I do not condone stealing, but right now we have a match between theonlybaus and n0eL as part of the ESOC second iteration of the WarChiefs Classic, a tournament which prominently features the what do you call them? TWC civilizations, the native civilizations of America. That is the Sioux, the Iroquois, and the Aztec. And like I mentioned, it's a round of 32 match, still early in the tournament. And to begin this match, it seems like we're going to be having a Sioux mirror. Both players have been comfortably locked into this matchup. You see n0eL greening up, theonlybaus color red, so liable to green up. Have it. So we're gonna begin this series. It's n0eL versus theonlybaus, a round of 32 match in the ESOC WarChiefs Classic II, second iteration of the Classic. I guess that's in the title itself. The one hosted by I Will Spank You, tournament that prominently features the TWC civilizations, that is the Sioux, the Iroquois, and the Aztec. Per the rules, the first matchup of every series is actually a mirror, not technically a mirror of civilizations, but just a mirror of WarChief civilizations. So you can pick any of those three, Sioux, the Iroquois, or the Aztec. For example, the matchup could have been Iroquois versus Sioux, but today we're going to be seeing a Sioux mirror, and these are actually two of the main civilizations of both of our players today. theonlybaus in the color red, playing as I mentioned, the Sioux. And one of his prominent civilizations. My scroll speed's a little too high here. 3. Like I was saying, Sioux is one of theonlybaus's prominent civilizations. He's traditionally a vanilla player, or a player that comes from the base expansion of the game. I know he got good on that version of the game before transferring over to the Asian Dynasties, where most of us play nowadays. But upon doing that, one of the civs he picked up was actually the Sioux. He's a good player with vanilla-based civilizations. That's Russia, Dutch, France are ones that he tends to main. But Sioux is another one that he picked up. And of the non-traditional, non-European civilizations, it's by far one that he plays the most. We also have n0eL playing the Sioux as well. It is one of his more prominent civilizations. A n0eL player who kind of gravitates more towards the... I guess there isn't a very similar play style to them, but he likes China, Japan, and Sioux, as we see clearly here. Outside of that, I'm not quite sure what else n0eL might have in store for us, but he is playing in the color blue, the east side of the map in this particular match. The map is ESOC Arkansas, and that'll be our map for Game 1 at the very least. Our next map will be, give me 2 seconds to check, ESOC Colorado. And that'll be played in both Game 2 and Game 3. After that, should it go to that, we'll be playing on ESOC Great Basin for Maps 4 and Maps 5. The reason in particular that is the case, that we're actually doubling up on the maps, is that, these these native civilizations, they have a special ability with their warchiefs. Each of the warchiefs is able to convert a guardian, and so depending on the map, that can be either very good for you or very bad, because some maps tend to have treasures with very high value, tough to beat treasure guardians, and when you're able to convert a lot of those, you get a pretty significant Pokemon team built up in the Discovery Age, which can actually greatly influence both the lead up and early colonial age It can prevent an opponent's FB from going up, among other things. But because it can be quite impactful, we've chosen to double up on the maps. That's why you see the same map in Game 2 and Game 3. But what has gone on so far in this match? We did see Blue, n0eL. He did have quite a sizable army with his war chief running along there. A Black Bear, Wolf, Iroquois Tomahawk. I'm going to just do page up and see what both players have gotten. So we've seen n0eL picked up a bunch of small coin treasures, 60 food treasure. He also got the Iroquois there and 40 food. So nothing too big so far. The only boss, on the other hand, picking up 50 coin, 80 food, 80 experience points. I would say that's a little bit better of the two. But at the end of it, n0eL comes away with a slightly larger Pokemon army. Still, in the Sioux matchup, both players don't tend to play terribly aggressive, at least when it comes in regards to their building placements. Both players usually just build TPs in base, build a stable, and start training cavalry in transition. They're usually going for a semi-fast fortress build order. So the Pokemon army isn't as terribly important as it might be in other matchups. You can see the Pokemon's just getting picked off right here. The Tomahawk liable to go down, and that Rifleman also getting taken down. Now it's the Black Bear versus Sundancer. So far, we're seeing what is typically the standard for a Sioux mirror, which is build a stable, 400 wood age up. Probably going to see some cavalry built in transition. Both players going to try to go up to the fortress age and get upgrades and stronger units, stronger shipments. Quite passive, overall. Like I mentioned, both of these players pretty much going for the exact same build order. We see the market coming out a little bit later for n0eL, but he did get a batch of 5 bow riders, and we see 4 bow riders coming for theonlybaus. We might see a little bit of a divergence here. Theonlybaus going up with 700 wood. I'm not quite sure what he's going to put that into. Of course, we see the foundation for a second trading post, but whether or not he's going to go for maybe like a forward war hut, like maybe right here, or right here, just to clear some of the map as well as some additional resources. It's yet to be seen. And 700 coins. So here you go. n0eL going with 700 coin. This is more typically what I would have expected from the Sioux. Seeing as the 700 wood, the additional infrastructure that you get, it doesn't really allow you to do a lot more in the mirror in colonial age. Theonlybaus, no smart. So he did lose a bow rider there, and he didn't have his explorer with his army, so that allowed n0eL to get some additional shots off because his units are just a little bit faster than Theonlybaus is not coming away from that trade very good. He did get some scouting information. You know, he knows that n0eL went with a stable, some bow riders in transition, likely transition. I don't think he actually scouted the 700 coin that n0eL shipped straight off the bat. We see n0eL distributed to go to the Fortress Age. Going to be hitting up a little bit sooner than theonlybaus. Theonlybaus, on the other hand, probably waiting for his 700 coin to arrive. Maybe not. Maybe he's actually, you know, looking by this villager distribution. He might just be gathering for the age up, which is an interesting play, if I do say so myself. We're going to see theonlybaus. I think he should have another shipment coming in. Like, he definitely has something on the way, so maybe that's 600 wood, because, you know, if he's distributing heavily for, you know, this... he's actually got a lot more cav in transition, and you know what? The 4th card is actually cavalry damage, so it doesn't seem as though theonlybaus has any intention of going to the Fortress Age at the moment. Instead, he's just going to build up some bow riders, And maybe we see the second stable in his base, actually. No war hut, like I had previously mentioned. Going double stable and going for the cavalry damage. So he's going to upgrade his bow riders, basically half of a veteran upgrade, you know, with 15% attack. You don't get the HP, but you get some of the attack. Trying to pressure in here, but, you know, he's on a clock. He has to know that n0eL is at least trying to age up, if n0eL isn't massing up in colonial age like the only boss is. And so he needs to do some damage, although it's going to be very hard to do that. Take a look at this defensive positioning with the TPs, which are going to boost the hit points. The bow riders, you see them sitting at 269 versus 220 of the boss. You just cannot take an engagement there. And that's one of the features of the Sioux with these TPs. You know, they just have an impenetrable, basically an impenetrable base. It can be so hard to pressure that I really don't think this was a good game plan from the theonlybaus. You can see he was trying to go for some pressure in the colonial age, and he's still not on his way up to fortress, and he's not distributing to go up to fortress. Instead, he's, you know, stuck in the colonial age with barely 5 more population than n0eL. So, you know, whereas n0eL invested 2,000 resources into tech, the theonlybaus barely has 1,000 resources more in units on the field, and that's not even the case. You take a look, 64 to 65. Were hunts fair? You know what? I actually did not check. I feel like they should be. Probably just has to do with this one needing to be herded in a little bit. But there probably should have been one over here. So I do have to apologize for that. Looking at the coin mines, there's 2 there. One over here, one over here. Standard fare. The theonlybaus now on a significant pressure point for the n0eL on a significant pressure point for the theonlybaus, attacking on where he is currently gathering food. Significant mass of bow riders coming in as well, but the veteran tech is in for n0eL's bow riders. And, you know, while these are a little bit buffed by the TP, the theonlybaus's bow riders are going to be significantly weaker. However, they are quite outmassed, so I would like the theonlybaus to take an engagement here. I think he could do quite well here. You know, these Wakinas have so low hit points. It's going to get cleaned up so easily like that. Look, shot in the back. Instant death. With the 9 Wakina shipment coming in, we did see 700 coin, which helped to get another batch out for the theonlybaus from his double stable. But it still wasn't enough, you know, just behind in tech. How do you say that? I guess my silence is kind of an answer in and of itself. I did forget. I'm gonna have to feel bad about that one. I really feel like there probably should have been a hunt here. We did see 2 hunts that were close to the theonlybaus's base, and there was this one that was kind of mid-map, so I'm not really sure that that one actually could have been easily herded in. And then there definitely probably should have been one over here. You can see the same for n0eL. This is where it normally would have spawned, but for some reason it just didn't. So much wide open space here. So I'm not entirely sure. Of course, you'd have to take a look at the game in the early minutes to really determine that. But that will be game 1 to n0eL in this series. n0eL actually the underdog. I'm not quite sure what his seed was. It might have been seed number 22. I think the theonlybaus took seed number 11. me there. Just taking a sip of water. I want to stay hydrated, especially for gamer counterparts. But considering that was one of the only boss's main civilizations, the Sioux, dropping that Sioux mirror might be quite frustrating for him here. Like I mentioned in game 1, n0eL, one of his main civilizations being China and Japan. So we do see him taking out the China here, but not locking it in. Fair enough, still thinking. Of course, once he has locked it in, he'll let us know. Then will be the opportunity for the only boss to counter pick. I think the only boss, it is quite likely that he's going to pick Sioux here. Of course, from the civilizations that he can pick, that's Sioux, Iroquois, and Aztec. Sioux is probably the one he's most comfortable in. And considering the matchup, Sioux versus China is probably a little bit Sioux favored. I don't actually have a lot of experience in this matchup, but from what I've heard, players seem to think that Sioux is the favored one. So it seems like the only boss, having thought a little bit about his strategy going into this game, he is going to be comfortable locking that in. So we're going to see China versus Sioux in this best of 5 series between n0eL and the only boss. Round of 32, ESOC WarChiefs Classic 2nd iteration. n0eL is leading the series 1-0, and we're going into map 2, game 2 on UIX ESOC Colorado. Now, n0eL is going to be taking the blue color in the west of the map. His locked civilization was China. The only boss in the color red, he's playing to the east. His civilization is going to be the Sioux. So one really nice thing about Colorado is that the hunts spawn in the exact same places every single time. So you take a negligent caster like myself, who might miss something like hunt checking in game 1, and you kind of alleviate that problem because the hunts on Colorado almost always spawn perfectly. You see 2 hunts here for both players. One in the middle that's contestable, and then you kind of have to extend out a little bit further if you want more. But China, to some degree, is a civilization. Well, I mean, they do depend on hunts, as any civilization does, but they kind of have it better than any other civilization with their villages, which operate with a mechanic that allows the villagers to be garrisoned inside them. So you can place these villagers, which are houses. They grant 20 population, a little bit more than a standard house, but you can also garrison inside them. So for example, if you place a village here, now you've established good control over both this hunt and this coin mine, whereas the Sioux is a little bit more exposed. Sioux doesn't actually build a lot of infrastructure. So when they actually do expand out, while they are a very mobile civilization and they can rapidly bring all of their forces back to any point on the map, it can still be annoying, and you can still be prevented from gathering as the Sioux, even though you have a very mobile anti-cavalry unit in the bow riders that can kind of ward off cavalry raids in early colonial. Still, Colorado is probably a very good map for China, but you might say this matchup is a little bit Sioux favored. Again, not much to my nuanced knowledge. Just from general player sentiment, it seems like Sioux is a good pick. So looking at the treasures, we're going to see 95 wood being picked up for n0eL pretty early. So he's already built his trading post and his village, so it's not going to be relevant in age 1. Actually, it might be. Okay, no, he already picked it up. I thought he was going to get 97 plus 95, but no, that's just the 95 plus 2, getting to 97 wood, which is not of any use to China at this point in the game, but still nonetheless a very, very valuable shipment to have picked up. 110 wood for the only boss. That's really, really good. He wasn't able to make anything of it because I suppose it was just you know, a regular start for Sioux player. There wasn't a wood crate on the floor, so he couldn't add 110 plus 100 and get, you know, for example, this trading post. Although he did get these TPs, so maybe he initially spent that 100 wood crate on these TPs to boost his early game food gathering rate. And that's why he can't get the trading post now despite having... Oh, no. That's what he invested with his 110 wood because he didn't start with a wood crate. So yeah, there was never a possibility for a trade post. Once he picked up the treasure, he just got those TP base. Pretty nice. 150 coin for 3 wolves is going to be definitely an excellent treasure for the only boss. Using his grizzly bears to get these coyotes into position to better serve the splash damage of the Sioux WarChief. Might lose the... Did in fact lose the grizzly bear, but out of it he's going to get 150 coins, so that is very, very worth it. The grizzly bear mostly in age 2. It's really just a scouting unit. It isn't terribly powerful, and both of these civilizations don't tend to commit to colonial games. So while there may be some colonial interaction, I feel like both of these civilizations like to duke it out in the Fortress Age. We do see n0eL aging up. I didn't quite catch when he placed it, but it does seem like he's going to get up to the colonial age at a decent time. 4 villagers on the wonder. Going to expedite the construction of that wonder by, if I'm not mistaken, 40 seconds. So if no villagers were placed to, you know, build that wonder, it would still auto generate its way up to colonial age at a rate of 120 seconds. So that's the time from start to terminus. It would take 120 seconds to get to the colonial age for the China player. But with 4 villagers on it, 10 seconds are taken off that time for each villager. So it goes from 120 seconds to just 80 seconds. On the other hand, we see the Sioux. He went up with the 400 wood politician. Nice lining of TPs around his base. Did get that other extra hunt secured in his base and starting to herd the next one in. Well, China, on the other hand, he does have the next hunt in base, although a lot of dead animals decaying on the floor, and hasn't started working on his next hunt that he necessarily needs to with the way that China operates, like I mentioned earlier with the villages. But it still might be good to see it reeled in a little bit closer to his main base. See the native scout being picked up for n0eL. That's going to be a very crucial scouting unit for the only boss, but it might be difficult to keep him alive considering that the Sioux WarChief is usually kept mobile with most of the Sioux army. You know, building a trade post right now, but once we see some units in age 2 pop out, maybe it's 5 axe riders, maybe it's 5 bow riders. Let's take a look at you. And nothing at the moment, actually. Probably just distributing to age up like we were kind of hoping for in game 1. Instead, the only boss choosing to sink units into age 2, but this time, different game plan. He's just going to go up 5 villagers, maybe 700 wood in transition, and he's just going to gather all the resources he needs in order to go up to the 4th age. Similarly, we are actually seeing n0eL 300 export start, not a standard start, building with Consulate in transition. Going to get redcoats out, and then his next shipment looking to be 700 coin. Have to see when that comes in. He may still be waiting for it. All right, I don't expect that. I feel like he should have had it. But either way, we see the 6 redcoats, which would have been good to fend off any colonial pressure that the only boss might have tried to field, but obviously as the third-party viewers, we know that that's not the case in this particular. Still, once n0eL is up to the colonial age, excuse me, the fortress age, those redcoats are going to be very powerful. 700 coin on the floor, like I mentioned, yeah, he's going to get another shipment, so even with the 700 coin having come in, I feel like 700 wood is probably on the way for n0eL right now, and aging up to the fortress age. The only boss also on the way to the fortress age himself. So Baus is going to get a little bit faster because I think he has the fast agent politician available to him. n0eL is still going to have to construct his tower. If he wants to expedite that age up, which it doesn't seem like he's going all out, he's going to go 4, which was one of the most resource effective ways to age up, but not placing 8, which is the maximum number of villagers you use to build a wonder, which would have most expedited age up. The only boss is going to be a little bit faster up to the fortress age. We're going to have to see what he's going to do. So he does have a war hut in construction. Probably leads us to believe he's going to try amassing Wakina and then maybe trying to ship some other things besides the 9 Wakina shipment. Like I might expect 5 axe riders perhaps, and let's see if he's gathering any wood. Maybe 1,000 wood to start off with. That might be a little bit too greedy, but I don't see him chopping wood at the moment, and we see axe riders in queue. So the reason I would say 1,000 wood might be a shipment is because he's not gathering the wood in order to get the veteran upgrade for, you know, bow riders or axe riders. I would figure he's just going to wait for 1,000 wood to come in. Instead, focus on these resources that are quicker to gather, like food and coin. Wood is the slowest gathering resource. Focus on the faster gathering resources in order to expedite unit production, get a big mass, and then with your shipment, 1,000 wood, that would allow you to get the upgrade as well as whatever other infrastructure you want. Get town center, maybe some more TCs, maybe another stable. Either way, we see 3 X Riders out on the field, just sieging a trading post, getting some line of sight over this extended coin mine. But n0eL is building his infrastructure in the other way, like I mentioned, with this village place to safely secure this hunt and this mine. These three Axe Riders aren't going to accomplish too much. A little bit of scouting material, really. Might take down a villager. It's going to be close. Yeah. Redcoat's there in time. Don't want to take too much damage on those Axe Riders. We see the 9 Wakina shipment is... 9 Wakina followed up by 5 Axe Riders. Where are the 5 Axe? Right there. And Elite Axe Riders actually is... I wonder when he got that. Maybe he got that right away. In age 3. Either way, we see 9 Wakina bolstered by 5 Axe Riders in the back. That leads to a pretty sizable mass. Obviously, he's not outmassing the China player at this point, but with 12 Redcoats on the field, you know, it's just not a good time for n0eL to take an engagement, but we do see a batch of China Cav on the way. See intervention. I don't know if another shipment is in the works for n0eL, but I would expect that what he wants to send is 5 Meteor Hammers to better balance out his composition of heavy infantry and heavy cavalry. Still the only boss, prodding in, getting a little bit of information. See another cav batch in queue for n0eL. Oh, or pardon me. n0eL is leading the series 1-0. He won the first game on ESOC Arkansas in a Sioux mirror. Actually, per these tournament rules, you can play any or not any civilization, but you can play any WarChiefs civilization as many times in a row as you like. There is actually no limitation on the amount of WarChiefs civilizations you can play. There is a restriction on the number of non-TWC civs you can play. For example, China, while n0eL could pick China in this game, next game he's going to be forced to pick a WarChief civilization. However, after that, he can choose to play China again. So technically, he could play, for example, Sioux, China, Sioux, China, Sioux. You know, if the series were to extend out to 5 games, that could be his order of operations. But we do see, tenuous raid. The only boss is not going to pick it up. He's just going to be sieging this trading post and actually going to get it down, but not picking up the 4 villagers there. It might have just been, you know, like a shift-click raid on that trading post. But n0eL is looking to push out at the moment with his composition of musketeers and cavalry. I was connecting with... Oh, this could be risky. There are a lot of units here. Musketeers getting really good damage on those Axe Riders, though. That's not what you want to see. But do we see the 5 Rifle Riders, which are really going to balance out this composition and, you know, swing it into the only boss's favors. However, the units were disconnected there. Not all of Baus's units were, you know, together. We did see the Wakians way back in his base. I was a little bit upset by that. Apparently there's some lag. Waited out. Pause. cavalry combat already coming out for the only boss. Now the big question, another batch of rifle riders. Obviously those were trained, but I'm trying to see how many exactly he has. So let's just take a look at military units on the field. 13 axe rider, batch of 4 rifle rider coming out production from the only boss, and 17 Wakinas as well. But for China, Jesus Christ, you get so many units, so many different unit types. But basically what this all is a very small mass of skirmishers, a small mass of pikeman type units, a lot of redcoats, a lot of cavalry as well. So those 9 rifle riders are really going to put in work for the only boss, and with a decent warding off mass, or a sponge these axe riders are going to provide. Those rifle riders could definitely put in some work, especially with the lack of skirmishers mixed into n0eL's army. It's going to be difficult for him to focus fire down the Wakinas. So now, really, I think what the only boss wants to do is just get a huge mass of axe riders, especially with cavalry combat. What he's going to want to do is get a big mass of axe riders, and that's going to operate as a sponge for the only boss. And it's going to really mitigate the effects of the cavalry, which would be happier to connect with, more vulnerable unit like the Wakina riflemen. Probably just waiting for that next shipment to come in. We do see n0eL starting to outpace the Sioux player. China just getting so many more additional units with their big shipments. Trading post offering so much. Oh, no trading post anymore, right? We did see it siege down, but as well the Summer Palace consulate. There's just so many ways for China to get additional units, and we do see him having a substantive mass at this point. Not going to want to engage in the trees. The only boss is going to have to be very careful about how he picks this engagement. I feel like he was just probably waiting for that dog big button timing at 15 minutes, just a minute too slow. I really like this from n0eL pushing out. He has a really good mass, and this is going to be a really tenuous engagement for the Sioux player if he's forced to engage here. Not great positioning. Where the Wakinas? What are the Wakinas doing? Not the Wakinas, but the axe riders just skirting around everywhere. The rifle rider's getting good damage in the back, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Just take a look at this. There's still so much China cav on the field. A lot of pikemen. They were being focus fired down, but that's not enough. Look at just the low HP on all these axe riders. You have the Sioux WarChief, who's down. A huge mass of infantry, mostly redcoats, which are going to be very, very tanky in regards to these axe riders. All the axe riders down, just basically left with a completely ranged composition, which does not play to Sioux's favor. Now, Sioux doesn't actually get a lot of upgrades for their Wakina besides, a waterfront shipment, which is hard to get. That costs 1,000 coin, and Sioux doesn't have the strongest economy usually. But, having focus fire down all of the cavalry, there's not going to be something left to snare the Sioux military. Still, this wasn't a great engagement. Not really engagement the only boss wanted, probably. Especially considering, n0eL is just going to have a significantly better economy in the back of this. And his military is just so out of position. I don't think he's going to get necessarily punished for that right now because there isn't any reinforcing units coming out for n0eL. But still, he's got to work his way out of this. And it's constant effort. Trying to player. Oh, and with most of the rifle riders being focused down, looks like a cleanup on those Wakinas, and look at that, all the rifle riders being taken down as well, at least in this main force. 4 reinforcing in the back, 1 taking damage, all the Wakinas dead. The forward town center from n0eL going to secure not only this hunt, but just map control in general, going to make basically, if this is able to get up, which I think it will be, going to be so hard for the only boss to continue to traverse through this middle passage of the map. Baus just struggling to fend off cavalry mass, doing a good job to focus down the very vulnerable Qingdaos. They get taken down in 3 shots, but losing a very, very expensive rifle rider, another one taking down very low hit points. Trying to mass up, on the dance for attack, but what the only boss needs at this point is just a lot of food. Just needs a lot of food. He needs to get that dog big button, which costs 1,500 food. That will grant him 5 or 6 dog soldiers, depending on when he calls it. But considering China is, Still has plenty of steam left in the tank. There's gas left in the tank. Oh, this is a really good reinforce from the only boss. This could be a nice positioning. There's not a lot of anti-cavalry from n0eL here, and he can focus fire down these Chengdaos quite easily if he's keen. This could go really well. Sentry's coming out, more Chengdaos on the way, but I think as long as he attack moves correctly. What is units doing? Wow, that was some really awkward jockeying from the only boss, and actually going to get cleaned up there and call GG. This is going to be 2-0 to n0eL, leading this series with just one more game left on the docket before a n0eL victory is secured. That last engagement was a little bit curious because I felt like the only boss had a really good position. He had a good spread on his cavalry to distribute his DPS on n0eL's mass, which was really lacking in anti-cavalry. But for some reason, it seems like the attack move bugged out, and instead, his units were idle for a few seconds there, a few crucial seconds, and it just led to his mass getting cleaned up. Still, at that point in the game, though, you can just take a look at the recalculated economic unit population, see that Baus was quite far behind. He had all of his villagers on this fire pit, trying to get the best possible engagement there, not gathering resources, unlike the Chinese villagers, which there's a coin mine running out here, but it's not a big stretch for n0eL to just extend out elsewhere on the map, considering the map control he's already established. So it still was looking to be in n0eL's favor there, but that is going to put him 2-0 up in this series. Just look at these units killed. Baus, was able to kill so many more units. Just wasn't the engagement that he needed. Just trading evenly is not what you can do against China. You need to win crushingly, have a substantive mass after your victory, and then barrel China base and prevent them, make it as awkward for them as possible to gather resources and mass up again. Crush whatever else they can field, outmass them. But yeah, that wasn't the case in this game. Instead, trading evenly, and that just enough for the Sioux game plan. So we're going to see n0eL pick up game number 2. I'll have to edit the score in the next game. Bit of a joke from n0eL there. I think he is actually listed as an administrator for the tournament. Speaking as an administrator myself, that usually what n0eL does is when we have to make crucial decisions, n0eL as well as Mito there to help guide us along. As far as actual tournament administration, players scheduled, creating threads for players to schedule their matches in, organizing streams, that usually comes down to myself, Mr. Bramboy, and Brook G. Oh. That's pretty funny. Come on, that's good. Are you, Basin? Oh man, I feel like Baus is a little bit tilted. Oh no, he wasn't tilted. Okay. He said, look, I thought he might have, like, typoed locked. I'll just lock. Well, this ain't helping. Like, I'm just gonna lock civilizations. I don't understand what's going on, so I don't care anymore. I figured that was what he meant, but I think he just meant he's gonna look at the scheduling thread. Better understand. So he's taking French, and n0eL is gonna counterpick with Iroquois. So from what we've seen from Baus, 2 times Sioux, and now France, n0eL being Sioux, then China, now Iroquois. I do know that Iroquois is a civ that n0eL is somewhat familiar with. Like we've established, China, Sioux, civs he's good at. Japan as well, another one that he likes to play a lot, but Iroquois. I feel like that's another middle tier pick. Not one he's completely in the dark about, but I haven't seen a terribly large amount of n0eL Iroquois gameplay. But either way, this is a best of 5 series between n0eL and theonlybaus. n0eL is currently leading the series 2-0 in this round of 32 series as part of the ESOC WarChiefs Classic #2. Like I was mentioning earlier, this is a little bit of an unexpected result. We've actually seen a lot of unexpected results in this tournament so far. So n0eL was, I think, seed number 22, if my math is correct, and theonlybaus seed number 11. Completely judged by ELO rating. So technically, in this series, it would have been more expected to have seen theonlybaus leading this series 2-0, but instead we're actually seeing n0eL 2, theonlybaus 0. So Baus is going to have a lot to work out in order to be able to win this series. He's going to have to win this match as well as the following 2. It should be a tall order. But we're going to have theonlybaus in the west, playing as France in the color red. His opponent, n0eL, playing in the color blue to the east side. He's going to be the Iroquois. That was his WarChiefs civilization counter pick for theonlybaus' French lock. Let's turn on friend foe. Let's take a quick look at the hunts. Thankfully, Colorado is a very consistent map. You see good hunts for both players, good mines, not much to worry about. Yeah, hunt mid-map, and then ones to extend outwards. 90 coin being picked up for n0eL. Again, not going to be terribly impactful in Age 1. 50 food is pretty good, though. Baus on 40 wood. Explore, his French Explorer. Oh, this could be so close. Having been discovered by n0eL, n0eL definitely knows. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, so a little bit slow there, n0eL. theonlybaus is going to be able to pick up that 110 wood and maybe get away. So he's going to get snared, but he does have the ability to get out of that snare if he's good about it. But the big point there is that theonlybaus got his rightful claim to that 110 wood, didn't get it stolen by the Iroquois Explorer, which would have been disastrous, especially when you're down 2-0 in a series. Get juked like that, that could be very, 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 very frustrating. Luckily, we don't see that in the game. Still, it was a close call, which probably has theonlybaus' heart racing. Like that. So that does put Baus 150 wood in Age 2. It seems he's done a pretty good job at spending it, so that probably got him both the market, hunting dogs, no trading post. So 150 wood was probably a 100 wood start in terms of crates. That allowed Baus to build the market and get hunting dogs without having to chop any wood for himself. But another really good treasure for n0eL, 90 coin, not a slouch in terms of treasures either. It's not impactful in Discovery, but very, very useful in Colonial. Choosing to go for a semi or a fast fortress build order. Picking up 120 XP is always useful. I was scouting out this, what is that? A bear that you can tame, not very worth it, but this is probably 5 wood, which probably hasn't been scouted by n0eL, so this is safe pickings for Baus. n0eL aging up fast. There we go, and we see his units mid-map. His Pokemon army with the grizzly bear, cougar. Age Up Fast Politician. Age Up at 3 minutes 20 seconds. Quite fast with the Travois. He's probably going to place that mid-map. There you go. And it seems like this game, n0eL is going to go for all-out aggression, which I think is a good strategy. Because likely what theonlybaus wants is a game that extends out towards, you know, mid-fortress, and that's when he'll take his timing against n0eL, who's also playing, you know, a civilization that likes to go to fortress. However, you know, playing this super aggressive play style, especially in the last game, the potential last game of a series, is a good way to throw your opponent, you know, just throw him for a loop. Even if theonlybaus is able to win in this matchup, it's not going to come without a struggle. And that's just going to, you know, contribute to the mental exhaustion that comes from, you know, having so much left in the series in order for him to be able to win this series. And he's going to have to win this game and then 2 games after that. So if he's forced to, you know, struggle his way to a victory in this one, that's just going to make his next victories all the more difficult to attain. theonlybaus just now hitting the discovery age. 5 tomahawks on the field for n0eL. 4 Kanyas having been shipped. Here comes the aggression. No military production facilities in the cards for theonlybaus. Pressure coming in. See the 5 tomahawks and the 4 Kanya just gonna siege down a house right now. I actually quite like that because you can't. There's not a lot of use in just walking around the town center of theonlybaus, just taking town center fire. Rather, this is going to be a plus 100 wood for the for n0eL, basically. I'm trying to expedite this production of the barracks, but I think it might have been just a little bit too soon with the 4 Kanya still out on the field. Definitely going to be able to pressure these careers, and I don't know that they're going to be able to get it up, yeah, without having taken a loss from the careers. So yeah, just going to lose a lot. Right, calling the Minutemen, that might be good, but he's still going to lose the barracks, and that's going to represent a lot of lost wood. He might kill a lot of units here. He's going to take down the Iroquois Explorer. That's very impactful. Very nice. He did kill 4 tomahawks. Almost killed a Kanya. Still, I would say n0eL came away from this trade the better. You know, Minutemen having been called. At least 250 wood lost for the theonlybaus. A lot of garrison time. I think this definitely went to the favor of n0eL. He still has his 4 Kanyas on the field. 4 Karurs, the next shipment for the theonlybaus. Maybe that's not bad, but he definitely needs to make up for it. Oh my god, and the Pokemon army coming in. Look at this. This is going to be a huge impact if he's able to take down all these Minutemens. You know, taking down 2 so far, taking down a 3rd. Getting a little bit sidetracked, but still, that was pretty funny. No, actually, we see great coats being researched now for the Coeur de Bois, but it's just so hard for the French player to hold. Like, what can you do? You see 700 wood on the floor now. That's good scouting information for n0eL. So now he knows that, you know, gas is on. Just pressure. Just keep pressuring. Stay in the theonlybaus's base. Prevent him from gathering the 700 wood. He can't counter you with like an 8 Expoman shipment, so you know, your tomahawks are safe. There's no unit that the theonlybaus can train that is going to counter what you have on the field. You know, if he trains a batch of 5 musketeers, okay, you know, it's outmassed by the Iroquois equivalent in the tomahawks. He makes Expomen while there's Kanya on the field that can snare them. So it's still such a tenuous, another barracks coming out for baus. It's just such a tenuous position for baus. It's time. See him even being outpaced in terms of score. The recalc in terms of economy, it still is to the favor of baus, but being forced to garrison his villagers pretty much at all times, means that he's not going to be able to make the most of that technical economic advantage. Losing 2 Coeur de Bois now, and that's really evening out the economic weight of both civilizations. We do see 5 musketeers being fielded, but still so hard for the theonlybaus at this point in his next hunt, having barely been herded in. He does kill 2 Kanyas here, nice pickup. 5 musketeers going to ward off that last one, and probably would expect 8 Expomen as the next shipment for the theonlybaus, but having dealt so much pressure, this 600 coin on the floor for n0eL, distributing to age up in the back of this, and this massive tomahawks and the oh my gosh. Kanya. Okay, so the Kanya just sees the Explorer right now and is probably content to fight that. but he doesn't see the 4 careers gathering at the moment. He probably does know, he's probably scouted this location. He definitely has scouted this location, so he does know that the only boss is gathering here. I don't think he's going to pressure it right away. That's not really to n0eL's game plan, but that could have been a little bit of a risky raid. Not panning out for n0eL here. Still, you know, n0eL has a considerable mass of tomahawks, which is going to prevent the only boss from ever pushing out in Colonial. At least pushing out in Colonial within the next 2 minutes. And in the next 2 minutes, n0eL is going to be up to the Fortress Age with ridiculously powerful Iroquois Fortress Age technology. It's going to be Force Prowlers, the Musket Riders, the upgraded Kanya Horsemen with the Iroquois WarChief aura. This guy is just, well, he's not with his Iroquois brethren at the moment. He's steadily gaining hit points, and once n0eL is ready to make a push into the only boss's base, that thing is going to be up. Have a lot of hit points to be very difficult for the France player to take down, but the only boss, a good timing push. Yeah, I like this. You know, he's got a big batch of musketeers on the way. A little bit of lag, but that's fine. 8 Expomen 2 bolstering his mass. Gonna take down this this Ford War Hut from n0eL, it seems like. Which could do really well to, you know, just buy the only boss time. Time with which he can, you know, get the timing push that he wants with probably, you know, a stable and some hussars. Yeah, you see the stable out on the field. A colonial timing push for the only boss, or allows him time to get up to the Fortress Age himself. But it doesn't seem like he's going to go up to the Fortress Age. 601 on the field. I'd expect that to be pumped into more unit production, particularly getting in some more hussars on the field. Now outmassing these unupgraded tomahawks and some exposed villagers on the field for n0eL. n0eL barely just hitting up to age. I think he was actually going up with you know, a slow politician rather than the fast age. Actually, he was definitely going up slow because he already used the fast age politician to get to the discovery age and deal as much pressure as he dealt. So losing at least 4 villagers here. In the engagement, getting some shots off. That was going to be forced back. n0eL is up, so he's going to be building a war hut with that age up Travois. Look at that, with 4 villagers dead and having, you know, having had to have invested so much time in that age up, n0eL's economy is looking quite weak. You can even see dancing on the fire pit. Those villagers not gathering resources at the moment. Instead, they're on the attack dance, which for units that are not engaging is not terribly useful. So n0eL's economy is quite weak here. The only boss actually distributing to age up himself. I just pocketed that 600 wood, waiting to build some infrastructure. Probably just keeping it in the works so that he can decide on what he wants to build later, once he's gotten some more information on what n0eL is doing. 8 Force Prowlers now on the field. Represent a lot of pressure potential for n0eL. He actually has a lot of resources in base 2. Force Prowler mass. Let's look at the units in queue. Probably a lot of Force Prowlers. Probably also going to get the veteran upgrade for his tomahawks pretty soon. Not trying to herd in this hunt. Oh, the back herd. Luckily, it's not terribly impactful at this current moment. Of note later in the game. Still, the only boss haven't gotten up to Fortress Age safely himself. You know, it was looking quite dire straits first minutes of the Colonial game, but I think the only boss has done a good job to come back from it. You know, pressured n0eL at his base in the transition, got the war hut down, and killed, most notably, 4 villagers. Let's pick up. Not able to engage right now. It just does not have the compositional balance that he needs in order to take on these elite Force Prowlers. You see 10 skirmishers filling out that batch. That's really nice for Baus. I think he should have a shipment on the way. There you go, the 2 falconets. That's going to be really good here. One of Iroquois' weaknesses in Fortress Age is in dealing with these 2 falconets of the European civilizations. Because Iroquois don't have any Fortress Age artillery for themselves, besides mantlets, which don't really counter artillery all that well. the way that an Iroquois player would contest two falconet shipment from a European player would either be to have a lucky Kanya snare. Kanyas do have a good multiplier against artillery, 1.75, or to have a big mass of musket riders. There you go, 5 musket riders now joining the battle. And having those musket riders, a big mass of musket riders, I think in just 11 or 12 shots, they actually kill an artillery piece. You can see they have a killer multiplier against artillery. 25 times 2.5. Only need like 11 or 12 musket riders. But still not having enough to do that at the moment. And not even sure if n0eL has a stable yet. Instead, just massing up infantry units. Baus, on the other hand, let's take a look at the overall military units, sitting on 18 skirmishers, 21 musketeers, falconets, and basically pure infantry for Iroquois player, which is going to make it, like I mentioned, very, very difficult to deal with these two falconets. So Baus, not quite comfortable with pushing out yet, but with the damage he dealt in transition, he just took so much off of n0eL's economic potential. He's at a significant resource lead. He's gathering safely, he has good line of sight, so he can't really be raided. He's got a good defensive posturing, a good defensive composition. 20 musketeers, 5 dragoons, and 18 skirmishers. That's definitely hard to break, no matter what your Iroquois composition is. Now, this side of the map a little bit more exposed, but still really good line of sight. And Baus just does not have a lot to be afraid of. Right now, it's basically just massing up and waiting for your timing push. The longer the game goes on, the more that Baus is going to benefit from this economic lead that he's building. But oh my gosh, with the Stealth Force Prowlers. See if this can really be put to use. I don't even know how to commentate this. This is a very curious situation. So the Force Prowler is now in snare. Oh my god, both falconets still alive. This does not look good at all for n0eL. Oh my gosh, so much damage. That infantry mass. It was cheeky, right? He was trying to focus fire down the falconets with his Force Prowlers, but it wasn't enough. And, while he was paying so much attention to his Stealth Force Prowlers, he had 5 musket riders just getting, just slaughtered by the ranged backing of the France player. Oh, 2 more. Oh gosh, this is just... This is just not at all going the way n0eL wanted it to, especially after those great, great first minutes. theonlybaus representing twice the military unit population of the Iroquois player. Okay. 6 Kanya horsemen, but losing these longhouses, and I don't even know if these Kanya horsemen are upgraded. That's going to be theonlybaus's counter, or sorry, n0eL's counter to these falconets, but even if he's able to kill those falconets, I don't think those 6 Kanya, those unupgraded 6 Kanya horsemen are going to be long for this world. There's so much anti-cavalry here for theonlybaus. At least 15 dragoons and 14 musketeers still in the composition. Just taking a look at the scores, theonlybaus, like I mentioned, he's content to just sit here, wait for his timing push, wait for not even a timing push. There's no such thing as a timing push at this point in the game. What theonlybaus is doing is he's just exercising his economic advantage. And we do see the 6 Kanya. They might connect here. But even after that, even once the falconets are out of the way, it's just so much strength here for theonlybaus. Look at that. Even one of the falconets still alive. 6 Kanya horsemen slain. It's just looking grim for n0eL. now sporting an almost 100-point economic lead with one falconet still in the back there. A huge mass of cuirassier, and I would expect the next shipment for the ESOC to be cavalry combat, but it might not even arrive before a Baus takes his engagement. Now sniping down most of the anti-cavalry of the Iroquois player. 15 dragoons in the back. Safe to connect these. Oh gosh, these 16 cuirassiers are going to be just a tidal wave. Cavalry combat coming in at the exact right moment. We're just going to see these cuirassiers smash the Iroquois composition, especially with all these exposed villagers here. Oh my gosh. A little bit cheeky. And that will bring it back, so there is at least going to be one more game in the series. n0eL is still on match point, leading this best of 5 series 2-1. The only boss hasn't given up yet. He's still looking for his comeback, and with a convincing game as the France, it looked pretty good for n0eL at the start there, but juked me out. The only boss definitely brought it back convincingly for a good portion of that game. Let's look at the military unit population. Look at the villagers lost, and that's big. Especially going up to the Fortress Age slow, and then getting counter pressured by the France player. Definitely put a dent in what the Iroquois player was able to field in the Fortress Age, and then he just got outpaced by the superior French economy. Good job, Baus. We are game 3. Leads us to game 4, and we actually will see a change in the map pool. See Great Basin for at least the last 2 games. Should it go to 2 games? So I think Baus is probably just relogging for sound. He probably had the sound bug there. Should be all right now. He's probably going to come back online, but I'm actually going to take a second to grab some water, and then I'll be back myself. Stretch out a little too. I promise I will not forget to check the maps in this game. So, luckily enough, Colorado is a very consistent map. Great Basin, not as much so. So I will have to be quite keen. It's fair for both. think earlier I was mentioning something about there having been a lot of upsets in the tournament so far. But to mention a few of those upsets, we did see Give You Anxiety defeating Conquer 999 3-0. Now, that's not a terribly big upset because Conquer was seed number 16 and GUA was seed number 17. Still, probably not what a lot of people expected. And then we had Soldier, who I think was seed number 9, against Keister, seed number 24. Keister won that series 3-1, earned himself a slot in the round of 16. Then we saw Haza 5-4-3-2-1, the number 4 seed of the tournament, losing to Muhammad, who I believe was maybe seed number 40 or so. So that was a 3-2 series. Muhammad, 3 victories. Haza, just 2. Muhammad will actually be the player that the winner of this series plays in the next round. Either Baus or n0eL, they will play against Muhammad in the round of 16. Baus. You know, I don't really pin him as an Aztec player, but the locked civilization of n0eL being Japan, if Baus has any bearing of how to play this matchup, in my opinion, it should be very, very Aztec favored. So I'm excited to see him take this because what it represents is opportunity for this series, or a more likely opportunity for the series to go to 2-2 match point for both players. Gonna see our players ready. It's n0eL versus theonlybaus, a best of 5 series that we're honorably viewing today. It's a part of the ESOC WarChiefs Classic II. Currently up. It's 2 points to n0eL, 1 point to theonlybaus. Theonlybaus having exercised his opportunity to counterpick this game. So n0eL was the first player to lock. He locked the Japanese civilization, and he's going to be playing to the north of the map in the blue. Baus will be playing as the Aztec. South, color red. The map is Great Basin, so I'm going to want to check these hunts. Look quite bad. We have hunts here, I suppose. Here and one to extend out for over here. Well, gets one right here, and this is the same equivalent to this one. Baus. And then this one, I guess he extends out. But he's Japan, so I'm not entirely as concerned for him. I do think these hunts are all right. Considering, you know, the Aztec player can extend out forward. For this hunt, it's a little bit far, but there's this, as long as he establishes decent control around the forward part of his base. And there's also this one, which is a little bit difficult to herd, but that's kind of just how Great Basin is. Importantly, I should look at the coin mines. So we have 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. Coin mines this map are not very good, but that's just how it is. It's not particularly bad for one player, and that's what we're looking out for. So they are balanced. And the hunts are all right, as long as Baus is keen to get that one. Do a good job herding his next hunt. It's gonna be easy, but is possible. But like I was mentioning earlier, as the players locked into this matchup, I do feel as though this matchup is very Aztec favored. And the reason for that, well, probably not going to try to articulate it at all. Instead, I think what we'll do is when the time comes and we're engaging in early colonial, I think it's better to just watch how the Aztec units fare against the Japanese ones. I think that's a better way to experience the one-sidedness that can occur in this matchup. So we'll reserve our commentary for it at that moment. So for the Japanese player, we're actually seeing a Heavenly Kami, which has to some degree actually fallen out of the metagame. So the typical style for Japan players nowadays is to send something like 2 villagers or even 300 wood, and then maybe go up with the Torii gates, or they can do the Chijogu sometimes. But they build a barracks, they ship 5 Ashigaru, mix 5 Ashigaru trained with 5 Ashigaru on the shipment, and just apply a lot of pressure on it. Early age, and what that does is Japan is bound to get an economic advantage at some point with just the way that their shrines work. So by instead of playing the defensive role, which can lead to you not being able to expand outwards economically as quickly as your opponent can, they just reverse that. Instead, they play the aggressor, and what that does is they still get the economic advantage in the game while also having dealt damage to their opponent, kept them on the back foot, which plays to their game plan, usually to extend the game out and get the extremely powerful technologies, shipments, military unit upgrades. But yeah, so like I was saying, Heavenly Kami is going to lend us more to that defensive play style. Kind of precludes us from doing anything terribly aggressive, and we see Olives going up for n0eL. Playing this out the standard way. The only boss we see 2 villagers very forward. Probably going to be a little war hut in transition. 700 boards of wood already arrived. I mean, 4 minutes and 20. I guess I just didn't notice when the only boss had hit up. But actually building that war hut very, very slowly. Usually some players, they gather the 250 wood in transition in order to build the war hut right away. But instead, Baus gathered 200 wood to build a trading post. And instead waited for the 700 wood to come in before building his war hut. So he's definitely going to go for a slower, more economic push. It's typical of an aggressive Aztec player. I don't think that's necessarily bad, although it kind of does play more to the hands of n0eL than it does the only boss. What would have been good is if, for example, Baus was able to do this economic playstyle, while n0eL did something like an aggressive playstyle that botched economy, and then Baus was able to hold the pressure and then counter it with a better economy in the back of it. But instead, n0eL, just giving n0eL a little bit more time just kind of plays more to his advantage than it does Baus's. But still, it's a really good matchup. Next shipment, n0eL, sieging down one of the shrines close to n0eL's main base. Where n0eL's at in the game so far. 5 Yuumi on the field, barracks safely constructed in the back, and plenty of defensive walling, which is going to make it very difficult to pierce the base of the Japanese player before he has gained a sizable mass of Yuumi archers. Still n0eL exercising on his game plan. Got his shrines on wood. He shipped 600 wood. Just working on his Kami boom at the moment. Starting to develop an economic lead. Still, Boss is not far behind. The economic disparity is not a terribly huge one. And in the back of it, Baus has a trading post, so that also operates as an economic function, expediting the arrival of Baus's shipments. One of Aztec's core features is the strength of their shipments. It's the speed at which they can get them. Special Aztec WarChief aura, which experience bonus. Still, Baus having shipped mostly military units at this 10-9-6. 10 Mace Welton, 9 Mace Welton, 6 Puma Spearmen. You know, I really want to see him put on some pressure right now, because the longer he waits, the worse this gets for him. Because, you know, while he does have a sizable mass of Puma Spearmen, those aren't going to do a lot against Yuumi archers. See just how quickly they take down these Yuumi take down the Mace Welton. So he is going to get down one of these walls, and that's going to allow him to push in here. But he's not going to want to really engage with the Spearman on the Yuumi. I don't think that's a good trade overall, so he's going to have to be careful here. 7 Bestieros popping out some Coyotes on the field, but Baus going back, realizing it's probably not the time to engage. Back in. Nice hold for n0eL. Wall going right back up. So you can even see the Japanese player ahead, the Aztec one, in terms of population at the very least. It is also representing a small economic lead with the shrines that have been able to go up freely around the map. I have Ashigaru Musketeers also reinforcing. Not entirely sure how much I like that shipment. There aren't a lot of Coyote runners on the field, and they get sniped down very, very quickly by the Mace Welton. I might have liked better maybe something like the Daimyo, perhaps 4 villagers. Maybe another layer of walls behind it. Still, n0eL. Maybe even 600 coin. Sneak in and age up. Have to see what n0eL is up to, or what his game plan is before this match. Double 5 Ashigaru. Okay. Baus is just massing himself. He's got Walton on the field. 15 Mace Walton, which is definitely enough to one hit kill Ashigaru, but probably not enough to make 2 split groups and to kill 2 Ashigaru groups at 2 Ashigaru at a time. Probably need maybe 25 Mace Walton to do that comfortably. Still a good mix of all units, a lot of spearmen, Coyote runners, Mace Walton, an even mix of 3. n0eL is looking with a sizable infantry mass for himself. Exercising a small economic lead is going to put him further ahead the longer the game goes. And, you know, Baus having not sieged down these not at all contested shrine boom of the Japanese player around the map. Even now his next hunt about to get shrined up by this Japanese player. It's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be difficult. Because I don't think that Baus is necessarily at a military lead at this point. And n0eL has a significant mass, and he's liable to get a unit upgrade or perhaps the Daimyo. Significantly going to make his units just all the more powerful than the Aztec units, whereas the only upgrade card that Aztec has in H2 is Coyote Runner upgrade. And look at this positioning. The Ashigaru is just going to be in direct contact with these Coyote Runners, and they're not going to do very well. The Mace Walton in the back going to provide a good DPS. I like that he's mixing in the Puma Spearmen, which the Ashigarus do not do particularly well against. Still, I don't think that Baus is going to have enough Coyote Runners to be able to contest these Yuumi archers after all is said and done. You know, more Waltons popping out, and those are going to do well against. Okay, no, there you go. Calling it right there, realizing, you know, he's not at an economic lead. He probably just lost his timing. And at this point in the game, with n0eL having gotten shrined basically every hunt around the map, Baus is just not going to be able to catch up economically, and because he's down militarily as well, just going to call it quits. Right? Probably, yeah, strange distribution, probably a little bit misdistributed. Probably didn't want pikemen there anymore. Yeah, just not the tightest game plan from Baus, but that will put n0eL up 3-1, the underdog again. Winning this series, going to earn himself a slot in the round of 16 versus Mohammed _ that match will qualify him or his opponent, potentially, for the quarterfinals of the ESOC WarChiefs Classic. A quick series in an upset for n0eL, or sorry, for Baus. Pretty happy victory for n0eL. I'm sure he's quite happy with his performance here. Taking a look at it. Let's look at the all resources gathered. So we see 2 bumps where 600 wood was shipped, but you can see it's just starting to take off. n0eL is much better. All resources gathered graph, the longer the game goes. Military unit population, there you go. Not a great engagement for Baus, and now he's outmassed. Weaker units overall. You can see here, this push did not work out at all to his favor. n0eL was able to clean it up and win the series.